trying again, hoping it's working a bit better this time. So I'm doing another scheduled live, and today I am talking crazy in the car. So this one is for those of you who have either puppies or adult dogs who struggle when they're travelling in the car. How they're struggling might vary. They might be overexcited, they might be overwhelmed, they might be anxious, there might be all manner of things. But today I'm going to try and cover what not to do with your crazy in the car dogs, and what not to do and what to do, how we can help them reduce that stress in the car so that we can all have an easier car journey. It's definitely something that I have experienced quite a bit. So although I don't drive, you know, I'm very lucky. I have friends who give me lifts with my dogs, but Marley, one of my whippets, was never fabulous in the car. He was very, very anxious. So he went from being really anxious to actually actively loving the car, even to the point where he would approach strangers' cars and try and get in, which was a little bit surprising considering how much Marley used to be scared of the car. So whatever your problem or not problem, or however, you know, your puppy or dog is with the car, feel free to comment, feel free to ask any questions throughout, feel free to use any emojis. I'm getting better at that word, aren't I? But it's definitely, this is a good one for all dogs. I think it's definitely a good one even if your dog's just a little bit excited or a little bit nervous. As I say, I've got lots of things to cover on this one. As always, it will be recorded, but if you are watching live, it gives you the chance to ask any questions. And it's often easier to ask questions when I'm talking. One moment. Even better when I've got a puppy who's misbehaving in the background. Hi, I don't think I'm meant to shred that. Yeah, why do you wait until I'm doing these things? One moment, I'm still here, everyone. Arkle wants some hearts if you're watching. Everyone just disappeared off the face of the earth when I run off to find the puppy. Puppies are fun, right? Good fun. He just tried to shred the little dog duvet they have. I don't want him to do that. So, crazy in the car. So what do we want to be doing? How might your dog look? Thank you. Arkle says thanks. Thanks for the hearts. How might your dog look if they are not happy in the car? So there's a wide array of behaviours your dog could be showing that give you a sign that they're not that happy in the car. It could be they refuse to approach the car altogether, they see the car and they back away, they try and get in the house, they try and flee their harness. It could be that when they are in the car they are nauseous, maybe they're licking their lips quite a lot, maybe they're sort of agitated, they're looking around, maybe they're panting, maybe they even vomit. You know, some dogs will throw up in the car, and that can be a sign of stress as much as it is a sign of motion sickness. So what do we want to be talking about? Well, one of the first things I want to say is if you've got a dog who's incredibly anxious about the car, like they have an extreme fear of the car, don't put them in the car unless it's an emergency. Like, build it up really carefully. Poor Marley, we worked with another trainer many years ago, and they told me that Marley was panicking for attention, and yeah, really. What they did was they put Marley in her car and shut him in and wouldn't let him out until he stopped panicking, which is literally the definition of flooding. Literally did not help, make things much harder. Don't flood your dogs with the car. There are far better ways that we can handle this. So we don't want to be forcing them, we don't want to be making them deal with it with anything. It's gonna backfire. It's gonna come back to bite us later. I'm watching my puppy, he's going to sleep, thankfully, I think. So what we want to do is be thinking of a plan. And I think what we need to think about is a few key things here to come up with the right plan for your individual dog. Because everyone's individual dog will respond really differently to being in the car. And everyone's dog is going to look differently, potentially displaying the same emotions. Picked a good time to do this. My puppy's eyeing things up going, what can I choose? If you see me looking off the camera a lot, I'm keeping an eye on him. He's looking at wires at the minute. He doesn't know why. I've given him chews. He says they're rubbish. So let's talk first of all about if your dog vomits in the car. This can be particularly applicable to recently rescued dogs and puppies. They may never have been in a car. They may be very easily anxious in a car. And they're probably suffering like motion sickness when they're throwing up on your journey. It's really important that if you know your puppy or your dog is going to vomit in the car, they're likely to throw up, you don't have to just assume they're going to do that. It's really worth talking to your vet and discussing what options you have for car travel, because vets have an array of options. I couldn't advise you on specific medications because I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not a vet. But there are definitely options like anti-nausea medications that when you're starting out, if your dog is really distressed in the car, this can ease that distress, because what's happening is that you're going to eliminate the vomiting, and that's going to eliminate a bad association too. So that can really be worth talking to your vet about, is if your dog is really struggling with vomiting but you have to go somewhere, talk to your vet about having medication in that you can use in those situations. It's going well, the puppy's running wild. Teenage puppies are the best. So let's have a look at my wonderful notes. So let's talk about two different ways of looking at this. If your dog is nervous in the car, we want to address that vomiting. As I said there, address that vomiting, talk to your vets, because it could be that they are just feeling motion sickness. We want to think about the setup of the car. How is the car set up? If your dog is anxious about the car, is there any way that you could make the car setup easier? Some dogs are going to be happier in a crate. Some dogs are going to be happier clipped in securely. So, hi puppy. Some dogs, he wants to be on camera today. Some dogs are going to be happier with like a bit of fresh air in, like a window cracked, because this is going to help with like the air compression, I think is what I'm trying to say there. Maybe I've invented that. Air compression, yeah, that makes sense. Because, and this was a big help for Marley, sometimes just having that window open a crack can help the pressure sort of decrease and make them feel a little bit less nauseous and a little bit less anxious. So sometimes the setup of the car, it can make a huge difference. I've seen dogs who do much better when they're in a crate and not seeing the world outside. So for some dogs, seeing out the window is very much more of a worry because it's just going past them. A million miles an hour. So for some dogs, a covered crate or a canvas crate, it depends on your car, it depends on your setup, but that can be go a long way into reducing their anxiety, because they're not having to deal with all the visual stimulus too. So for some dogs, that's going to help, and it may potentially also make them feel less sick. Now, if you've got a puppy or a dog, I've got a suicidal dog in the background, he's trying to throw himself off something. Hi, I don't think you should be doing that. We had enough vet trips in the last year, we don't need more. He says he wants to be seen, he thinks he's doing a class where he's helping me. He's not. There's nothing we can demo on cars here. Sorry. So if I have a dog who's incredibly anxious about cars, like the sight of them fills them with panic, they don't want to go in, they will actively resist, maybe they go to snap, maybe they go to bite, maybe they go to slip their harnesses, whatever it might be, that dog needs to have some time dedicated to training. And the easiest sort of way to do that is to keep things low pressure with the car. Keep things low pressure, because the car is something that results, that results in an outcome. And for those dogs who are a bit anxious about the car, perhaps they don't like the outcome as well. Maybe it's just even the outcome is that they go in the car and they go on a trip and they don't like that outcome. So you can keep things low pressure simply by getting the car out, getting your dog out to the car with the car doors already open, all of the car doors open, and try having, if you feel like your dog has some sort of a slight positive reaction to the car, then you can try scattering food in the car, you can try having them just hopping in and out of the car with all the doors open so the space isn't as enclosed. For some dogs, it's that tight space as much as anything that can increase the anxiety. For some dogs, don't eat that thread. For some dogs, what you might find is that they still don't want to go in the car, like even with food around. They're going to look at you and go, this is a trap. I'm not an idiot. You want me to get in the car and I don't want to. Therefore, I won't be participating. And with those kind of dogs, what you probably want to be thinking about doing is playing something I call the magnet game. And the magnet game is brilliant. and it's really simple to explain. It's obviously always a lot more tricky, like in reality, but the simple explanation is I will go out with loads of treats, and when my dog even looks at the car, I'm going to mark them with like a word such as yes or a click, and they're going to get treats. But the treat isn't going to be to lure them into the car. A lot of the time, these kind of anxious dogs are really anxious that we're going to try and pressure them into the car, and what they need to learn is that they have the choice to interact. So for some dogs, the magnet game where we click them or mark them, for interacting with the car and treat them usually away. I would usually treat them away so they know that walking away is an option. It's a really good thing to do. And I would do it in short bursts. I would maybe have like some free work activities around the car, like snuffle mats and kongs. If you have multiple cars, that's one way to do things. You could have things like that around the car so that they get the idea that they don't have to interact, but the situation is positive. And I would always quit when I am winning in those kind of situations because I don't want it to end on a bad note. So I just do a few minutes of that. It's low pressure interaction with the car. If anyone's interested, I do have videos and sheets on the magnet game, so that if you are having a hard time visualizing it, because it's a bit of a pants explanation, I can send you those sheets and those videos because they might prove helpful with your dog if they are incredibly anxious about even getting in the car. Then we want to take it steady and we want to build those nice positive associations. Sorry, my puppy's doing all sorts of things here, none of which are what he should be doing, which is settling down. He's had a very boring day though. My Emmy's been very bad and I've not been able to walk particularly well, so he's had to entertain himself quite a lot today. So I don't think I can blame him hugely. If, however, you have a dog, they're just a little bit anxious about the car, but they're not horrifically anxious, they can get in the car. What I would probably do with them is I would put them in the car and give them a Kong and not go anywhere sometimes. Just so that they sometimes learn that going in the car is a nice tasty Kong, licky mat. Insert your dog's choice of enrichment item there. You could take a book, your laptop, your iPad, whatever you're using, do some work, and your dog can enjoy their, their enrichment item. And what this does is it again makes the car a little low pressure, and it makes sure that it's associated with good things. And along with that, you probably want to, as they do build confidence and as they do get better, you probably want to do like little short journeys in the car, only when your dog is coping. If you have a dog who's only a little bit anxious, that short journey could be getting in the car, turning on the engine, driving up and down the road and coming home. It doesn't need to be far. What you want, like with a lot of things, it might sound familiar, like with a lot of things in training, is you want short, sweet experiences that don't result in a negative outcome, because that's what builds their positive associations with a situation. So if you're having dogs who are a bit anxious about the car, they're not so sure, but they're okay. Short, sweet trips that result in either no big deal or a good outcome are best. Especially if you have an anxious dog in the car who knows that maybe they go to the vets. And maybe they don't like the vets, because a couple of my dogs love the vets. They think it's amazing. And for some dogs like Marley, he knows that he mainly goes in the car these days for a vet trip. So we are definitely going to be doing lots of work in getting in the car and it resulting in just a nice walk with a friend's dog, rather than the vets, or rather than, a walk somewhere he doesn't want to be, if you see what I mean. So he will be having short trips that result in good outcomes. I mean, for Marley, we just did lots of short trips that resulted in fun walks with his friends. And Marley went from vomiting within honestly 5 minutes of being in the car to being able to go, where was the furthest we went with Marley when he was a bit healthier? I think we went to, no, it's not hugely far I think it was Nottingham, and we went to the Great Greyhound Gathering a few years ago. I think that was it, and I think that was an hour and a half maybe. It was a while ago. I don't drive, so I don't remember the exact time frames, but it was a long journey for him, and this was a dog who could only do 5 minutes without vomiting. And suddenly he was able, not suddenly, but within a few short trips, he was able to go anywhere, because it resulted in good outcomes. So if you have a nervous dog, what things do we need to be thinking of? If it's nerves, anxiety, we want to build positive associations. If we have vomiting, we want to be talking to a vet. We really want to be talking to a vet about anti-sickness medications, especially at the start of training. It is going to make life easier in the long run. We're going to have nice trips to the car. If we have a really anxious dog, we're going to do the magnet game and keep it like a super, super place to be with no pressure. Pressure is such a big thing on dogs. So then we have like the other end of the spectrum. And what we can sometimes have is, in contrast to this dog who's a little bit anxious about the car, or, you know, incredibly anxious and they want nothing to do with it, you have the dog who happily goes in the car. And they happily go in the car, and what they do, I don't know if any of you have this kind of dog, is they bark. Like 10 minutes in, they start to bark and whine. Maybe they shake a bit. Maybe there's a lot of things going on there, but suddenly you have a very vocal dog. You don't have a dog who looks that comfortable. They might be panting, they might be whining, they might be shaking, they might be barking. And these are dogs who are really interesting because you could put loads of labels on them. You could say they're anxious. You could say they're overexcited. You could say loads of emotions are attached to this. But I think the easiest way to look at this personally is a lot of these dogs are suffering, like suffering's maybe the wrong word, but they're anticipating something. They know something is going to happen. And by being in the car, they know something is going to happen, and that sort of triggers a big emotional response. It's easier, in my opinion, just to word it as an emotional response. These dogs are making a lot of noise. They are excited. They are maybe a bit stressed. They just don't know what to do with themselves. They are having an emotional response because they're anticipating an outcome. Now, these are the kind of dogs who some of you might have when you're coming to classes, who when they come to the top of the lane, they start barking. And they start barking because they know at the top of the lane, they're really close to classes and they want to come to classes. You know, there's this anticipation, they're barking, they know where they are, they know where they're going. Maybe they whine at a certain corner. You know, I had friends' dogs who are really quiet, but the moment they turned to like my road, the dogs started barking because they knew they were coming to pick me up with one of my dogs. And these dogs, you wouldn't say they were distressed. It was definitely a form of stress because it's resulting in this barking and this, you know, exciting sort of behaviour. But I wouldn't say they were distressed. I'd say they were anticipating an outcome. So these dogs can be, I'm going to end up sneezing, these dogs can be really confusing for some people and some trainers because it's not always straightforward what the emotional response is. And in my opinion, the way that we approach this is we think, why is the dog doing it? Because they're anticipating an outcome. Now, these are the kind of dogs who when they're coming home, they're not so bad. I don't know if you have dogs like this. If anyone does, feel free to comment. But they're maybe dreadful going somewhere, but on the way back, they're like, oh, it's over, we're going home. And they're not so bothered suddenly, which sort of wages the question, anticipation. They know that going somewhere off your drive means something is going to happen. How do we address it? Well, I would probably, with dogs like that, do a couple of different things. I would start thinking about, I'm going to sneeze, I would start thinking about, oh dear, doing, it's hay fever time of year, it's wonderful, isn't it? Can't be the only one with it. I would like to start thinking about doing those purposeless trips to the car, where maybe I go in the car, they get a car, or maybe they're just having a nap in the car. Maybe those dogs just need a nap in the car. Gonna go in the car with their bed, or, you know, if they're going in a crate, again, a crate could be a different option if they're not in one. We just let them chill for half an hour. The car is no big deal. The car doesn't always result in a big outcome. The car is just there. So sometimes maybe you're gonna go in that car, do nothing exciting. Maybe sometimes they get a Kong to encourage calm, but not always. It becomes purposeless. Again, there's a word I'm not entirely convinced is real, but I keep using. Well, you know, what can we do as well as that? I mean, what we also want to be thinking about doing is there's always going to be a point where your dog doesn't react in the car. Like, whether that is 5 minutes down the road and back. That's a trip you're going to do for a few days. You're going to get them in the car. You're not going to be very exciting. And you're going to drive. Maybe you don't even get out of the car. You just like go a circle around the block and you come back. That was boring, wasn't it? That was interesting. Maybe it's a time, I'm going to sneeze, I'm sure I am. Maybe that's the time you put a podcast on the radio. I don't know. Whatever it is, to make it less of a frustration for you perhaps. But you just go for a drive around the block. And you want to be doing this and varying like the duration that you're driving and where you're driving in short bursts that you know they're going to cope for like maybe once a day. Maybe a few times a week. It always becomes difficult to advise because it depends on how much time you have, if that makes sense, in your life as an individual. But by doing these short trips in the car where you're not having it become a big deal, it makes the car less interesting. It makes the car less something to anticipate. Like, being in the car doesn't always result in this big outcome of going to see friends' dogs. It doesn't always result in the outcome of going to a family member's house where they have lots of fun. It doesn't always result in doggy daycare. Sometimes it's just a drive around the block. And that's not very exciting. And that's what you want for these kind of dogs a lot of the time, is you want to make sure it's not exciting, it doesn't result in a major outcome. What you could do is you could even then, when they're doing well, drive them somewhere quiet, take them out of the car, do a bit of sniffing, 5 minutes, back in the car. No big deal again. We just went in the car, nothing exciting. In fact, it was quite boring. We just got out, looked around the car park, bit boring, back in the car. And I think, you know, that's a really good option to go with for a lot of dogs who are anticipating the outcome. They're barking, they're whining, they're panting, because a lot of these dogs aren't doing it on the way home. And they're not doing it on the way home because they know, no offence, I'm sure your house is really fun, but they know it's less exciting going home. It's not something new, it's not something exciting, it's home. And novelty is a big deal. So what else can you do? Again, crates. Crates can be really, really good. Crates can be good so that they can't see what's going on. So we sort of are looking at these two responses mainly here. We're looking at anxiety, where the dog doesn't want to go in the car, and we're looking at anticipation. The dog, maybe a bit of conflict, maybe they like it, but they're a bit anxious. Whatever that is, we're addressing them slightly differently, but equally, both approaches could help quite a few dogs. So in terms of, like, you know, some people say to me, is there something I can give my dog to reduce their anxiety on a car journey? Is there something I can give them? So again, I'm going to reiterate that talking to your vets is always a really good idea, especially those of you with really good vets. Anti-sickness meds if they have nausea or vomiting, or if you've got a really long journey with a really incredibly distressed dog, there will be medications that you can give just to take the edge off them. Because it's far better than them getting distressed. I know a lot of people don't like medications, but it's helping your dog, it's benefiting their quality of life, and it means that it doesn't undo any training. So what other things can you do aside from that? You know, I want to give you that option, but you've also got other options. Mine love the smell of Pet Remedy. I find it very relaxing. I love Pet Remedy. It comes in like a spray thing. You can spray a bit of it in the car. See if that brings the energy down, just a little bit. You could try giving supplements such as Dorwest Valerian drops. Again, they just take the edge off a little bit, and if it's just that your dog's a bit intense, it might just bring them down just a little bit. I'm not saying hugely, but maybe. Everything is a maybe, I'm afraid, with supplements. It's horses for courses. What other supplements could you go for? Maybe Dorwest Skull Cap and Valerian as a loading dose, maybe, like the tablet forms, before you go out. I think that just takes a little longer to work than the Valerian compound. And I can never say this was like a certainty, but I do feel like I was once told to give Marley a little bit of ginger root, or like something with ginger in it, before we travelled. It seemed to help. It seemed to help him stop vomiting. I couldn't tell you, like, with certainty whether it was the training or the tiny bit of ginger, but I think I'll try and get a link on that to be a bit more specific in the comments. One other thing that I can suggest, particularly for those of you that have dogs that vomit in the car, that have dogs that feel a bit, you know, unwell because of the motion, because it's the motion that's making them a bit anxious or unwell, games that involve balance can be really good. So, like, I've posted the balance paths recently. They can be wonderful. They can be really helpful. And by that I mean we get our dogs walking across different surfaces of different heights and being aware of their body. We maybe want these kind of dogs to be standing and doing some work on things like, like wobble cushions, where they put their feet on and it's a little bit wobbly. It's a little bit unbalanced, but they get used to being like on an unsteady environment, if that makes sense. If you've got a tiny dog, hot water bottle when it's not hot. I have to be clear on these things. A cold hot water bottle. You know what I'm saying. Not sneezing, but I'm coughing. Putting their feet on that can be helpful too. You're sort of trying to think of things that can maybe replicate a little bit of motion that result in a positive outcome that aren't stressful. So I think that is all of my notes for Crazy in the Car. I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you do, you can comment. I'll give everyone a few moments to ask any questions. What I will say is I will put if anyone's interested, I can send a sheet on the magnet game for those dogs who are very anxious about the car, and a video as well. It doesn't involve the car, but it's the exact same principle as what is in these videos. I think the key message is we want these experiences even with the car to be nice and positive. We don't want them to be stressful, we don't want to be flooding, and we want to keep things short and sweet where possible. I think that's everything for Crazy in the Car. It's not the most exciting one I've done, I know, but I do get questions about the car pop up quite a lot. One more thing, I always get there just in the end. If your dog has suddenly, spontaneously become anxious about the car, and when maybe not talking like, a youngish dog, like a, teenage adult dog, maybe we need to consider, is there something physical going on? I know you all get bored of me talking about that, but it could be a sign that they are in discomfort and in pain somewhere, and the movement of the car is exacerbating that, because maybe they're struggling to settle because of the pain. If in doubt, if sudden behaviour changes occur, please consider pain. I know that sounds like the weirdest thing to plead with you all, but please consider pain. It's way more common than you would think. Honestly, it's way more common than you would think. So do bear that in mind as well. So what other lives have I got coming up this week? So this is the only one on Wagging Wonders, which I hope is where I am. Who knows? But I think I've got Whippet Wonders tomorrow. I'm not sure what order I'm doing them in. I can't remember off the top of my head. As I say, my Emmy is playing games with me today. But I know I'm doing multi-Whippet households, adding another Whippet. But then I am doing, ouch, that hurts. So I do a slightly more annoyed voice. Guide to Nipping. And that's going to be on Thursday and Friday. So, have a nipping dog. If you have a multi-Whippet life, or you want a multi-Whippet life, I've got 3. And then try checking out the Whippet Wonders page. I'm apparently getting more full of hay fever by the moment, so I think I'm going to sign off. Thank you for joining me. As always, I will put links to this in the Facebook groups, and they are uploaded to YouTube, so if you are not following me on YouTube, you can subscribe to the Wagging Wonders channel, and you should find most, if not all, of the lives up there so far, which includes party animals, fearful puppies, reactivity, recall, this, soon, and more. As I say, if you've got any questions, feel free to give me a message. If you'd like the magnet game sheet and video, then do let me know. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Oh, thank you for your thank you. I never know. I'm not on this planet today, I don't think. I hope it all made sense. I will also try and get some sheets put together as well, and maybe some visuals, but otherwise I'm just wittering now. My puppy's finally gone to sleep, and I think I'm going to enjoy that. So as I say, I'll be doing 2 more this week. If you have any questions, let me know, but otherwise, thanks for watching. Bye!